Hello, my name's Philippa Waller.
My name is Penelope Waller, and we are two of the directors at 4D Human Being.
And welcome to the 4D Human Being podcast. What's it all about, Pen?
It's all about your personal and professional relationships. It's about your communication skills, how you lead, how you work and build teams, how you are looking after yourself and your well-being, and how you are much more at choice. What do we mean by that?
Well, sometimes we can get a little caught in patterns in life and we can all be a little bit on our automatic pilot. So 4D Human Being is all about helping us get back to choice and being a four-dimensional human being. And your fourth dimension, of course,
is intention. So whether it's about your impact, your leadership style, your team dynamics, whether it's about your well-being, whether it's about your communication or your presentation skills, anything that involves human beings interacting with other human beings, 4D Human Being are here to help.
we're going to take a deep dive and look at some tools, insights, theories that are going to help you go from a 3D human doing to a 4D human being so that you can happen to the world rather than the world simply happening to you.
That's right. So just before I pressed record, Penelope said, "What?" And do you know what that reminds me of? It's like being an actor and you're standing in the wings and you just getting yourself ready, and then somebody says something like, "Have you got the time?" Or you're just like, "What?" No, we're going over here now. You whispered something into my ear before I started recording, and it took a few seconds for my brain to try and process it. Anyway, well, I mean, Laura, rack me up a super segue. Because that is absolutely about brain function when a sudden unexpected change comes in, which is exactly what we're talking about. It's so true that is a micro version of what happens in change, where the brain just can't hold the reality and compute what's just happened. Suddenly the ground has moved. So, welcome to, this is our second podcast on when you and your business face tough times. Yep. And we're diving into, so we talked about communicate. Can't say it enough. Can't say it or enough. Communicate. And this is the next two of the 5 steps, really practical steps that you can take in your personal life, in your professional life. When curveballs come in, they can be minor. Like case in point, like the unexpected reply or comment or timings on an event, or something just relatively small happens. Or they can be huge curveballs like organizational change and being transitioned out of a company or helping other people transition out of companies. And either way, really, the chemical process, the biological process is pretty similar, and there are really, really practical things you can do. And this is also, of course, if we face difficult news or moments or frustrating moments in our personal life. I just suddenly thought of moving house, which is always the one that no one ever goes, everything went amazing. But people really look forward to that, actually. It's interesting. I think part of it is about our expectations versus reality, and I think that's also the case when there's big change at work. A lot of people, I think, spend a lot of time in anxiety because they don't know what's happening. And then when they've got more certainty, they're able to act. But we can spend quite a lot of time either really looking forward to something and building up expectations about it and thinking that's the reality. Or on the flip side, we spend a lot of time kind of catastrophizing, and that becomes the reality. Well, and they're all just made up.
It's so true, isn't it? Because you're so right. We're either way, you are creating
an experience.
Yes,
really.
but you're also, either way, there's the benefit cost analysis on that, isn't both ways, because if you're, can't wait for that holiday, it's going to be amazing, we're going to have the most wonderful time, I've got this whole plan, the weather's going to be good, I've got this image of me by a pool, and then it's raining and everyone's a bit miserable, and so that's
disappointing,
misery, and then annoyed. Or like you say, you're
spend a lot of time in anxiety, which is equally.
And then 90, 95, 99% of that doesn't happen.
You didn't need to, but you've still spent that time in that.
It's so true. It's a good argument for being in the present moment.
Well, it is. Slash being sort of slightly neutral. In fact, I'm thinking about our holiday we've got coming up. We've got a family holiday coming up, and
I am sort of approaching it with neutrality, because we can't control the weather. Like, we can't control how everyone's feeling or what different people want to do. We're going with quite a large group. So I think I'm approaching it with curiosity.
That's the word, though. That is the word, though. I love the word unfolding, because
it will certainly unfold.
Life will unfold. So this is perfect, because the two things that we want to talk about today are, so number 2 is the accept and build mindset. And this is for you, and if you're running a team or you're running an organisation, really helping others, helping your leaders adopt the accept and build, and your people adopt the accept and build mindset. We're going to talk about that and how to do it, what it is, why it's useful, and how to do it. And then number 3, so it's a second point today, but it's number 3 in the 5, is having the energy to act. And I said to you this morning, I mean, I think I always say this on these podcasts, but I was thinking about what we were going to talk about. And I was laying there in bed and I thought, if there were 2 philosophies or kind of cornerstones that are really central to my life, because they've become so through having done a lot of improv and also having to manage some things
and taught you a lot as well.
And they've taught me a lot. And these 2 things, the accept and build, which is right from the world of improv, you know, accepting the offer, we'll talk about that, and then saying, well, okay, I've got to work with that. That's where we are. And the energy to act, to do something. And that is inverse, if you like, to having no energy to do anything, but it's also contrary to just staying in the cognitive,
thinking a lot about something.
And those 2 things, if you can accept where you are and say, oh, okay, I'm going to build from here, and I'm going to find the energy and put that there, you've got a lot. That's a lot in terms of managing life, isn't it?
Yeah. And we'll certainly,
with nothing else,
exactly, and we'll certainly take you down a different path than if you do the opposite to those 2 things, which would be reject and complain,
or deny,
and the other one being, you know, feeling the inertia, unable to do anything. And it's not to say that we don't sometimes feel like that. Of course we do, particularly as I demonstrated at the beginning of this podcast, when we get hit by something that's unexpected, the brain kind of can go a bit frozen. So it's not that we don't feel like that. It's just, how can we recognise when that happens and think about the choices that we have in front of us? And these are 2 really brilliant choices.
Well, and I love that you've brought up the word choice there, because I was just thinking as you were talking that we can often forget that sitting down and ruminating and becoming anxious and worrying is also a choice. It doesn't feel like a choice, but it's remembering that inaction is also a choice.
Totally. And I would add another choice to that, which is, very often I have conversations with coaching clients, whether it's about, you know, possible redundancy or, you know, there's just difficult things going on in organisations. And it can feel like you are a little bit powerless and you actually don't have any choice, in terms of you don't know what's coming, or something has arrived and you have no choice in it. It feels like the system is kind of dictating to you what's going to happen in your life. And again, I completely understand that. And I always like to talk about the I and the we, or the I and the it, so the self and the system, and just think about both of those being dynamic rather than one happening to the other.
Yes, one having all the power.
Yes. And again, I think some of the tools that we're going to talk about through this campaign can help us to activate the self when perhaps we feel a little bit like the world is happening to us.
I think it's such a wonderful touchstone. I was really thinking about this recently. I was writing some copy for our website, and I was really thinking about all of us. And we don't just talk the talk.
No.
I mean, you know, these are tools that we've really put in place. And I think there's something really important on this that I really love, which is actually you can use as a touchstone to remind you, if you catch yourself or you hear someone else saying, well, I haven't got any choice.
Yeah.
While that can feel like a real truth, actually what that is a really lovely little like reminder, like bell, like little sort of, you know, trigger to say, oh, you've got caught.
Yes.
You've got caught in the belief that you're stuck and powerless. Actually, you don't have all the choices. You can't control everything. But when you find yourself saying, I don't have any choice.
Yes.
That is actually, that's a really good moment to go, that cannot be true.
Yes. And that may not be your exact phrase. So just, you know, watch out.
There's nothing I can do.
Yeah, I think for me, probably my favourite one is it's not fair.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Because
that's put you in the victim.
Definitely put the power in the other person's hand, and it might not be.
Yeah.
And that phrase is telling us a lot.
Exactly. It might be true. And exactly. Where's that leaving you? Okay. Let's talk about the accept and build mindset. Now, this is straight out, as I said, of the world of improvisation. As an improviser, obviously there's no script, you're getting suggestions from the audience. You've seen many of those shows over the years, Pen.
I have.
You have. And
I always thought you were the best on stage, Phil.
Listen, stop
you
it.
were masterful.
Stop it. But what you are trained to do as an improviser is to take the suggestion that's given and to build the story from there. So really what that whole training is about, it's not that you just sort of walk off the street, never done any improv, stand on stage and can do it.
Yeah. And it's not the same training as being an actor either.
No, exactly. It really is, again and again and again, through sessions with your group, is being prepared to fail, look stupid, not have anything, not know what to say, and you keep on and on and on, working through scenarios and scenes and ideas until you get to a state where your brain no longer freezes.
Yes.
When something completely unexpected, you're in the middle of doing a dentist scene and somebody suddenly tells you that there's an elephant in the reception, and you don't have to
go, no, there isn't.
No, you don't panic. Actually, what you do is you immediately start making connections. Yeah. So if there's an elephant in the dentistry, we're either near a zoo, or this is a dentist in India or Thailand. Something happens, or it's a pantomime elephant, or it's a child's giant. Like, you immediately go into what could this be, as opposed to what an idiot. Why did you say
I don't want that?
I don't want that. I can't do anything with that.
Can we just talk about the dentist and what he's going to do?
Or, of course, there's an improviser saying, no, there isn't.
Yes, exactly. And that's blocking. That's a nightmare. I would just say, as an aside, obviously we're going to talk about the improvisation mindset, the accept and build mindset in the context of tough and challenging times.
Yes.
And for anybody out there that has to do anything like panel discussions or facilitating or hosting panels or doing presentations, Q&A, if you're a leader and you may be asked to get up spontaneously and speak, anything like that. I mean, even interviewing as well. The improvisation
dating.
Dating is good.
having a conversation with anybody.
Exactly, living. The improvisation skill set is absolutely amazing in terms of reducing the anxiety and really opening up what you're able to connect and pull up and step into. Yeah. And we run loads of improvisation workshops. It's great fun.
That are absolutely, as you say, absolutely about application. Yeah. So check out my TEDx talk if you haven't. That is all about all the things that I've done in my life, and the improv has been the big game changer, one of the big game changers.
Yeah.
So just to almost to slightly go back, whether we're talking about improv or you're doing a presentation and suddenly somebody shouts something out from the audience, which is the same, or we're looking at life changes, organisational changes, personal life changes, our brains, without the improv training, automatically go into fight or flight. Yeah. And from here, we'll have, first of all, our system is now activated in a way that isn't like, oh, this is fun, I'm at a great party. It's in a, right, I've got a...
There's a problem
There's danger.
Yeah.
So our prefrontal cortex flooded with cortisol because the whole system is now saying, do something. Like, we're in danger, we're in danger, we're in danger.
Something unexpected.
Something unexpected, exactly. So if you get a bit of difficult news or you're dealing with a lot of change, bear in mind your neurology and biology is probably going to go into the fight or flight mode. So from there,
which is likely to result in freeze, or you might go into kind of blocking or defense. Possibly you might even go into attack or retreat. So a number of things could happen, which may not actually produce the response and outcome that you want.
Exactly. So in a way, that energy is useful. We're going to talk about this. Like, you're energized, but usually that is going into a fear-based response. Exactly. So one of the ways that we can get back to certainty, because our brain doesn't like uncertainty, I mean, unless you're an improviser, in which case you're like, bring it on, which is such a great place to live from, isn't it? But even then, we're all human. When we're in uncertainty, one of the wonderful And terrible ways that the brain can create certainty for us is by painting pictures of all the worst case scenarios that can happen.
Because it feels certain.
Because that's more certain than I don't know what's going to happen. So, so you can really understand the mechanism that's happening. So your system is trying to give you certainty. Unfortunately, it's painting you the sort of, hellfire nightmare that you're now dreading. And now you're certain that is what is going to happen. But knowing this, knowing that is what your system is doing is really not only the first step, but a massive step. Because as soon as you've got that observer self, we would call it your intentional self, your fourth dimension. Even if only 1% of you is able to see what's happening, you've opened the door.
Exactly. And I had exactly this conversation with a client the other day, and we offer transitional coaching at 4D, which is really helping both organisations and individuals through change. And that may be leaving an organisation, joining an organisation. And this individual started to talk to me about what had happened and therefore what the impact of that would be. I let them speak for a while, and then I pointed out that none of what they'd said had actually happened, and it was only one branch of 100 branches of different possibilities that may or may not happen.
Exactly.
And it was interesting that they smiled and sort of let's backtrack and start from where we are.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, because even if you think you're not a great storyteller, you are. You are, because you'll create amazing stories about all these terrible things that are now going to happen. I'm going to be sat on a pavement and there'll be no food and etc. So so the other thing to say about when those moments of change come in is that with transitions, the brain takes time to adjust. So in that space, our emotional dimension fills that space, and we're feeling all of these feelings because the brain is trying to catch up to the reality. And of course, one of the other responses we can have is to deny that it's happening and bury that consciously. But of course, even then, at an unconscious level, those fears and worries are still playing out.
And still being felt.
You'll probably feel tense, or you'll get ill, or you'll be irritable or angry, and that's
take it out on other people.
And that's the denial. So exactly. So we know that it really affects state, and then it affects the cognition. So the wonderful, wonderful doorway in, of course, is physical and relational. And if we think about improv training, you're up on your feet, you're with others, and you are drilling and training your whole system to calm down, be present, and respond in the moment. So while
and not feel shame, not feel anxiety about what may or may not happen in the scene.
Exactly. So you really want to get your state regulated. That's going to change your chemistry. And get into relationship is also really helpful, because it's when we're isolated, we're stuck with our own stories, of course. So once you've got yourself slightly regulated, the more that you know, whether or not it's a personal practice around taking a moment, breath work, sitting quietly, just, acknowledging what's going on, journaling, anything that, going for a walk, or whether it's in relationship, talking it through and going, okay, well, that's all made up.
What can we do now?
Then your next question is, and now what? What can I do? And we don't have to solve the whole thing. What's really, again, going back to improv, it's a team sport. You're part of a system. You're not on your own trying to solve all the problems in the world or trying to change the organisational policy on your own. You can do your part. So it's your bit. And the other thing about what can I do now is your bit. If you can do one thing that has a sense of completion, so that might be making that one phone call to a connection that you haven't spoken to for a while. And this just came up with a coaching client recently, where he's left an organisation where actually he ended up not being very happy. He reached out to his network, he was well connected, and it was one phone call to a weak tie from quite a long time ago, and that started the snowball, and he's now in a position that he's really loving, really engaged with and challenged by. So making that one call, so the completion of a task like rewriting your CV or changing your online profile
can feel so empowering,
because you've got completion in a scenario where you're faced with uncertainty and lack of completion. In the wider picture of uncertainty, you're not at the final goal. You don't know what's going to happen, but you can put those micro tasks in that give you, even tidying your chest of drawers or your wardrobe. Like, I know it sounds ridiculous, but it gives your
gives you a sense of, I've done a thing that has reached completion and meaning.
Yes, which is why I very often advise and encourage individual clients who may be leaving companies to take control of their own narrative as quickly as possible. So an example of that might be, very often with people that we work with, there will be a communication about them leaving. I think it's really important that you take hold of that. So as you say, you feel like you're empowered and you feel like, I've kind of completed the circle of what's happening here in terms of taking control of that exit communication. It's so important.
Yeah, so important. So if we look at just a couple of tools on accept and build mindset. Firstly,
stop complaining or blaming.
Well, this is the first thing, isn't it? Is get yourself out of.
And I would really watch some of these toxins. We've talked about blaming and complaining, and that is certainly a very familiar way that our anxiety can show up, and that feeling of sort of slightly helplessness. There's other things as well. If you think about all the toxins that we could have, some of the obvious ones are stonewalling, so just kind of shutting down and not speaking, or contempt as well, which is kind of, it's a little bit more subtle, but it's giving the impression that other people are a bit stupid. So any of these toxins can really start showing up, and they can feel really, really fair and justified because something has just happened to you. You didn't ask for it, you didn't want it, and that is your response. And again, we're only human. We respond how we respond. And if you think about each decision and choice you make in terms of...
those are the dogs, by the way.
If you talk about each decision that you make, it's like you're laying down the next path of what's going to happen next. Why are you making such a noise, Beary boy? It's like you're laying down each brick of the path in terms of what's going to happen next, where you're going to go. And again, whilst it may feel really justified and that's how you feel, it may not be very useful in terms of who you're becoming and what you're opening up in terms of the next step, and also what you're leaving behind.
Your legacy. And this, of course, absolutely speaks to the 4D model, is who is driving that bus. And in times of change, almost more than any time, we can really feel justified that our emotions are driving the bus, because it feels like that's the truth. That is your emotional dimension driving the bus. It's short term. It may not even be very beneficial. It may, in fact, be detrimental. You want to get your intentional self driving the bus. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's the first one to think about in terms of the thing to perhaps try and step back and avoid doing when something happens like that was unexpected and you're not particularly happy about. The other piece is then what do you then do? And a question to ask yourself is, and now what? Mm-hmm. And now what is possible? Yeah. And again, I'd really think about firstly the language that you use and also the people that you're speaking to. It might be worth, depending on how you like to operate, it might be worth doing some journaling around what's possible or having a conversation with somebody. Berry boy, too much conversation from you.
Too much conversation from you.
Or having a conversation with somebody. It's very much about asking yourself the curious question, and now what?
Yes.
And you may not have all the answers to that. And it's going to help your brain to get into a state and to start thinking about things in a much more healthy and possibility mindset than perhaps it would go to otherwise. It doesn't mean you have to solve everything. It's just trying to trigger your brain to move out of that negative bias and into something that can be more positive.
Exactly. What is possible? And that's for example, if there's a lot of change or you've got some layoffs at work, that is what is possible, both for who is still going to be here, who's staying here, what can I do to support them, what narrative do I need to have, what do we need to get together, do we need to make a plan, and also what is possible for the people transitioning. And that might be some transition coaching, it might be support, any number of things, but what can we actually do? And part of this, of course, is what we can actually do is get on with business as usual. That life is still rolling as it is until it's not, and there's something that we can do which is sort of disconnect, isn't there? It's actually, you're missing opportunities sometimes when we stay with something, even if we think it's not going to last. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Totally. And, the benefit of hindsight, 6-12 months down the line, you'll look back and potentially you'll be doing something, engaged with something that you perhaps wouldn't have done. But of course, you won't know that at the time. And I do speak to many clients who, a year or so after perhaps, they've been made redundant, they've made incredible transitions in their lives and doing things that they never thought that they would do.
We've experienced clients before who've thought that the curveball was going to come in their way, and it turns out that 6 months down the track they're still there and someone else isn't. So you just don't know.
And we talked about Kierkegaard, didn't we, when we were in Copenhagen earlier this year, a philosopher that's kind of really sits in the 4D philosophy. And he said, of course, that life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards.
Indeed.
And that is just how it is.
Yeah.
It's just
and there are many reasons to be thankful that it has to be lived forward, unless you're Benjamin Button. Okay, so that is the accept and build mindset. So sometimes maybe just write a list of things that, if you want to have an event, absolutely. Things that are annoying you, great. Get it out, get it done. We need to feel our feelings. This is not about suppressing feelings. No. And then write a list of the things you could do. Go, really anything at all. It might be, I don't know, buying a new set of mugs for the kitchen, colourful mugs. In a way, it doesn't really matter.
No.
It's now what can I do that's going to do something positive, possible, that's going to have potential to it.
Which takes us on to
the energy to act.
This is the doing.
So you really want yourself and your people to be fired up and have the energy to act. Now, we talked about this is number 3 on our list of 5 steps.
Yeah.
Because, of course, one of the things that can happen with change is either we go into the frenetic, sort of chaotic fight and flight where it's not very focused.
We might be complaining, or we might be kind of running around upset about
which isn't
things.
necessarily useful action. But the other thing that can happen, of course, is the shutdown, where we've got no energy at all because we've gone into we've gone into hopelessness.
Yeah, the waiting game.
The waiting, yes. So one of our lovely phrases, of course, at 4D is: do you wait, stagnate, or create?
Yeah.
And this is all about that last one. You can wait and see what happens. You can stagnate, which is that really kind of, this is what we're talking about, going down into that shutdown where it all feels hopeless. Or you can create something new.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes. So, and this is really about getting out of that cognition, getting out of the rumination, getting out of the catastrophizing, getting out of the thinking what's going to happen now, where am I going to be, this is a really hard situation. It's not to say that your thoughts are not useful, and we can really use the physical dimension to make choices for us when perhaps the intellectual dimension is not serving us at its best.
Absolutely. And in fact, many sports performance coaches, top sports psychologists have found through research that the players who overanalyze often end up underperforming. So it's really being careful about this balance. And I love a bit of thinking, and we're very rewarded for that as children and students usually. But actually, too much thinking can be detrimental to your business. I mean, and to you. And I know it sounds sort of weird,
but especially in uncertainty, probably.
Especially in uncertainty, that you and your people might want to reduce analysis and increase positive energy to act.
Yeah.
And that's both about bringing people in like 4D, who are experts on energizing and focusing people, but it's also about knowing who your people are, who have got that positive, contagious energy, and really supporting them to have a ripple effect through your organization. You want to help people create clear actions, to have creative conversations around what we can do about possibility, looking for those possibilities rather than problems. We humans usually feel better once we've fired up our energy and actually done something.
Yeah, well, it's true of a morning run, isn't it, Phil? I mean, think about how you feel then. And I think what's really interesting in these times of uncertainty and change within organisations, when we don't have all the information, we don't know what's coming down the track, is that the opposite of action can be what we end up doing. We can think, well, I'll wait. I don't know what's coming. I haven't got the information. I can't make decisions. And yes, there will be a truth to that. And what can you do? Yeah. What can you do to act and get people energised and motivated?
Exactly. And this is sort of firstly about recognising whether you recognise in yourself where you go in terms of that worry or ruminating or shutdown, denial, where you're either overthinking or you're just not thinking anything. You're just trying to numb, which is also not going to necessarily lead to action. So it's recognising it in yourself, and it's fine to have it for a bit. I've really recognised I have about a 24 to 48 hour period now in times of change where that energy comes up. Yeah. And then I know it happens, and then you can go, okay, got that bit through my system. Yeah. The nervous system has done what it is sort of programmed to do.
And now what?
Now I'm going to go and create something, make something happen. Exactly. Yeah. So Tony Robbins has a really good phrase about energy flows where focus goes. So it is about activating your system in a really positive way and thinking about where you're spending your energy, because you are spending energy when you're ruminating and worrying.
The brain uses the most energy of any organism.
And if you think about organisational change and tough times, and people will say, oh, it's really toxic around here. Well, that is a lot of energy around the water cooler, isn't it? Yeah. That's going into the complaining and blaming. So it's not that there isn't the energy, it's the energy to act.
Yes, and even if you feel like we can't use that energy in terms of creating our business strategy or moving the team forward or executing on plans because we don't have enough information, you can still use that energy to the benefit of your team and the organisation.
Absolutely.
Get them connected, get them firing up ideas, run a team offsite, have some fun.
Yeah, exactly.
There's things you can do.
Exactly. Use this time. Exactly. Let's put something in place. What are we going to put in place to support each other? Yeah. How are we going to set some short-term goals that are going to keep us motivated in the meantime? Yeah. What are the skill sets that we've got that we would normally put towards that longer-term strategy or vision that we can use here?
Yeah.
Exactly.
How can we spend some of this energy just getting to know each other a bit better, doing a bit of networking or whatever it might be?
Yeah. How can we model helping other people who are in difficult situations in a completely different place? It might be community-based or charity-based, but how can we actually activate our own energy by helping other people who are maybe living far more often through difficult times? Like, there are always choices. Exactly. There's something about tough times are where we create meaning. Yeah. Tough times is the sort of, it's the iron forge of where we really become who we become, because we really dial up our qualities through tough times. So this is also a real opportunity for you to model a way of being that's not only going to serve you in this moment and other people in this moment, but is going to shape who you are in the future and the narrative of who you are. And of course, you've no idea what skill set you're going to learn through this tough time. I mean, I'm a psychotherapist not because life has been about skipping through the poppy fields.
No, that's right. Exactly.
You learn skills through tough times.
And I was going to say something exactly around that, which is we can try and think our way to what's possible. And again, not that that's not useful, really useful. You might, though, be surprised if you take action either individually or as a team in any kind of direction, energize in any direction, whether that's a skill you want to learn or connections you want to make or whatever it might be. You might be surprised how action alone can then skill you up, teach you something, take you down a different path, make new connections. We really underestimate that physical dimension in terms of what it can do for us.
Yeah, and you've no idea what taking one action is going to lead to in terms of, like you say, other people, meeting other people, learning a new skill, having a new experience, changing your state.
I mean, was it Jerry Sternham? Did you put a quote by him in your
Yes,
blog?
we use this a lot,
He's done some amazing work, hasn't he, in terms of kind of stepping in to situations in different countries and just starting to do something and without really having a
clear
whole plan in place.
Yeah.
And boy, what that has unfolded.
Yeah, take the next step. Yeah, his wonderful quote is, it's easier to act your way into a new way of thinking than think your way into a new way of acting. I mean, again, I just think that is such a cornerstone.
Yeah. He was talking about it more, I think, in terms of how we can sometimes get bogged down by bureaucracy and process, and it's difficult to get
which is
things
another
off the
version
ground
of
socially and community-wise. Yeah. And so just stepped in and just started doing things on a really small scale and let it grow that way.
Yeah. So a good question to ask, if we build on the accept and build mindset strategy, a good question to ask around energy to act is, what do I or others need right now? Right now, what is the thing that could just make something slightly easier or more fun or less painful or less anxiety provoking? What one thing? And focusing where you put your energy, make it constructive, and also you're looking for that completion in these really difficult times. If you, for example, maybe you put a blog out to help other people, the 3 things that you've learned to do through difficult times, as we do,
completing that will make you feel very, very different.
And even if you get some comments back from people who've read it, you'll feel like
you're active. You're in action.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what can we do if we feel like we're listening to this and we feel like, I get that, like that makes a lot of sense, and I don't feel like that.
I don't feel like that. So focus your attention. So again, this is the first piece on both of these, is notice where you're spending your cognitive energy, the anxiety and the worry. Your time, your attention is so precious, and it's so important during difficult times, because that actually, as we're trundling along the road in life, arguably the most important moments is when you hit the junctions.
Yeah.
And these are the moments to go, right, I really want to be choiceful here. So where is my focus? And is it a conversation that you could have? Could you have one conversation with somebody? And maybe that's a friend that you speak to all the time, or maybe it's someone new, or maybe it's your boss, or maybe it's someone in another organisation, or maybe it's a friend of a friend. Have a conversation. Yeah. Can you go to an event, meet one new person, and have that conversation? I mean, all of these things are things that have changed lives. And certainly changed our lives. So that you're back in charge and you're ready to act. Could you look for one new opportunity? Could you piggyback another project and say, can I help out? Can you spend more time with someone who makes you feel positive?
Yeah, I love that one.
Can you help somebody else? Maybe you're transitioning out of a company or not, but maybe your colleague is as well. Could you help them write their bio? Nothing harder than writing our own bios.
So true.
Could you help someone else do that? Like, these aren't huge things. Yeah. Could you look at the stressed colleague over there and just bring them a coffee without even them asking, and have a conversation about what's going on today? Because the other thing around this is to not only help yourself have the energy to act and ask, what can I do right now? But it's to ask other people that if someone's caught in anxiety or blaming or complaining, can you ask them, I really hear you and this is really tough, and what would be one thing that you could do right now, or I could help you with, that might make even the smallest bit of difference? So you can also support others through that. The other thing, of course, is to get the physical going, isn't it, Pam?
The state. So I think sometimes when the brain is going off into that upset or anxiety, or perhaps even catastrophizing about what's happening or what might be coming around the corner, we can start to get physically exhausted. And there is a truth to that, because the brain is using up a lot of your energy. So one thing we can do is reactivate the system and consciously make a decision to get the body energized when it's starting to go into that more kind of hypo or frozen state. And anything really around this will probably do it for you. I mean, without exhausting yourself if you're not used to doing loads of exercise, but even if you do a few star jumps in your kitchen in the morning, or choose to walk briskly to work instead of getting the bus, or anything at all that will activate the system, by your choice, you're going to push yourself into a really healthy nervous system state that is going to feel much, much more energized in terms of doing things. And of course, it helps your brain state as well, and it helps your clarity of thinking. I mean, it's just win-win-win.
Yeah, you're releasing a very different set of chemicals in your brain when you are activating. Yes, there'll be all these people around you, including customers or partners, who are also worried. And of course, we can retreat from that. But another way to fire up your energy to act is to call those people and say, and not to say, oh, I know, isn't it all terrible? We're all worried too. I can't really help you. But actually to say, I really wanted to reach out to you. I know that this might be a worrying time. This is what we're up to. Fancy a coffee?
Yeah, bit of energy bounce as well in there, sort of giving people a bit of your energy.
It's the gift, isn't it? It's the gift, exactly. Yeah. And this, again, it's not to say denying the reality. It's about choice. That your state... Have you ever had that experience where... I think we talked about this the other day, and I was talking about it with a friend, where once you've done something like talk to a friend or make that one phone call, nothing has changed in the outside world. Yeah. The situation is still exactly the same, but you feel
completely different.
I know. It's amazing, isn't it, that we think it's the situation.
Yeah, totally. And you can have that the other way around as well. You can have that by, a thought or a text message might trigger a series of thoughts in your head, and you can completely change your mood. Yeah. And if you don't catch it, you will think that something has actually happened that has changed your emotional state.
Yeah.
And it may have done in some circumstances, but often it's the thought of something happening.
It absolutely is. Well, it's Hamlet, isn't it? It's that wonderful Shakespeare quote from Hamlet: "There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so."
It's true.
So just saying again, wonderful brains, creating wonderful things, and it's the idea that you are not your mind, you are not your brain. That is a tool for you to sometimes say, oh, I'm just going to pop you, just going to quieten you down for a moment, and I'm going to go.
I'll come back to you later.
I'm going to go and do something. Or it might be to say, oh, shush, I'm just going to focus you somewhere else now with all your wonderful thinking and creativity. I'm going to put us towards something that's really going to be helpful. So it's you taking intentional self, get in the bus and focus your mind and your energy where it's really going to help you and others.
Exactly. And if you can't solve something, or you can't find something out, or you can't sort of pin something down with certainty, you can at least act with your energy and focus it somewhere choiceful.
Absolutely.
Can at least do that.
And the last thing I would say on that is, if you have tidied your chest of drawers or your desk, or
I don't know if that's your go-to thing.
No, it's not my go-to thing, but it might be some people's. Or you've done that walk, or you've made that one phone call, or you've helped one person in your team, or you've rewritten your CV, whatever it is. Acknowledge and celebrate the wins.
Yes.
Because that is also going to really help keep you motivated to keep moving forward. So accept and build mindset. Help yourself and your leaders really have that mindset of possibility, not problems, and also the energy to act. Fire up the energy to act. Get moving, get going. You're in charge, and you might be really surprised at what it leads to.
And we really hope that you're having good times at the moment, especially as we move into summer. And if you're having good times or you're having challenging times, 4D is absolutely here to help with life, leadership and
love. I love it. Yeah, take good care.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the 4D Human Being podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Do take on board some of the insights, tools and tips, because every time that you try something new to get back to choice, you are making a vote for the you that you want to become. And I love that phrase, Pen.
I do too. And please do share this episode with somebody that you know would really benefit from the lessons and learnings we've been chatting about today.
And of course, if you're interested in more from 4D Human Being, do get in touch. We run workshops, trainings, online, in person, conference events and keynotes. We've got the 4D On Demand platform for your whole organisation. And we do have a free Essentials membership where anybody can sign up for absolutely free to access some of our insights, tools and tips. So do get in touch with us if you'd like to hear more. We cannot wait to hear from you and to carry on the conversation.